right, and we're back with On the Record with Kevin and Tiffany on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, home of conservative talk radio, where we are proud to be the American descendants of the formerly enslaved, and our politics is always be one. Okay, so in that segment, we're going to get a lot of emails, and I'm going to get a lot of hatred because I got meetings next week with physicians. But it is something that we do need to be aware of, right? We are our own best advocates, right? So one of the things, so when we talk about systemic racism, right, one of the things that I have to deal with in the party is defining what that means to people, because people only view racism from 1960, 1950, right, where people were at counters and being attacked and attack dogs and those type of things is what people generally think of, right? But for me, when I think of racism, I think of people treating me differently, right? I just remember as a kid when we had to go, it didn't matter what it was. If you had to go to the emergency room, your leg could be bleeding. My mom made sure you were washed and clean, right? And you had on your Sunday's best because that was the belief that we would get better treatment, right? And so, and the reason I want to discuss people will deny systemic racism, not realizing that these things are here because of things in the past, right? That people believe that black people, the physicians believe that black people can tolerate pain more. They believe all of these race-based things because, from my belief, it serves their financial agenda, right? And so when we talk about systemic, when you talk to your students, Professor Salas, about systemic racism, what context do you bring? Do you use something similar to that, or how do you bring that up and discuss that?
Well, racism is very old, obviously attached to slavery. Slavery wasn't always about skin color. In ancient times, ancient slavery didn't matter what color you were. The Greeks had black slaves, they had white slaves, it didn't make any difference. So ancient slavery, much different from modern, well, slavery after 1400. Then it was based on skin color. And you can actually trace some of the first, from the Portuguese and the Spanish, some of the first traces of racism in their language and in their customs when they were going and transporting slaves from the west coast of Africa, from the Canary Islands and other places. So you'll see the development of the idea that darker skin is something to be hated, lighter skin is something to be loved, darker skin is something not to be understood, or given a characteristic that's inferior, given a characteristic that people don't feel pain because their skin is darker, and they don't have if you look at some of the literature from those days, they would say things like black people don't have, or people with dark skin don't have the capacity to think on an intellectual level. And they're all super strong. They all got a bunch of muscles, so they should be slaves. And the people with lighter skin ought to be the people that control the world. And so this has been going on for, oh my God, 600, 700, 800 years, at least ever since after the Moors are defeated in Spain. And so and that's where it begins to happen, where ugly characteristics begin to be attached to people with darker skin. So it starts way back in the days of slavery, the early days of slavery, and then it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. It just keeps on going. And I remember a very famous black abolitionist by the name of David Walker. He tried to lead a slave insurrection, and I'll never forget one of his quotes, and I paraphrased it. When he was criticizing one of the presidents, he said, I don't think white supremacy will ever be gone this side of eternity. And so he was talking about its ability to change, instead of sheets and hoods, now there's ties and suits, and people saying the same thing that the Ku Klux Klan used to say, but they don't dress that way anymore. So it morphs. It makes adjustments, it changes, but it never goes away. And so I think we're left with a serious problem in this country that we have to keep fighting against white supremacy, because it does harm in this century as well. And even though slavery was abolished supposedly in 1865 after the Civil War, we all know it wasn't. Slavery by another name crept in because they used vagrancy laws and other kinds of laws to put blacks back into slavery. We're always talking about Juneteenth, and I have to say this. I'm doing a presentation at Texas Southern next month. I have to say that when Gordon Granger came to deliver the Emancipation at Galveston Island, they say that, and yeah, but they don't talk about the details. When he made that announcement, he also told black people, you aren't to come to the military bases where Union soldiers are for protection. You have to stay on at the plantation, and your owner will let you go. And by the way, you still have to have a pass. This is what that Gordon Granger guy actually did. So I don't know, we ought to be celebrating him. The word of getting the emancipation coming, we should celebrate that. But celebrating him, that's a mistake. He actually helped to institute the slavery by another name, by forcing blacks to still have to carry passes and so forth. And by the way, some slave owners never let black people leave that plantation. There are records from primary source documents that say one slave owner told the slaves they better not leave or they'd be shot. So I don't know where we get these sugar-coated ideas from, but it ain't all sugarcoat.
Tie that into now, right? So because we'll have people on the radio go, well, that happened then.
Okay.
It happened then. How does that deal with now?
They just had the march last weekend, and they don't have the hoods, but they still have the face covers.
Yeah, let's talk about how those attitudes affect processes today, right? So that people can see this, right? That there are processes and policies in the medical field, right, that are still there today because of those things that happen now. Kind of talk about that a little bit, if you would, Dr. Salas.
Well, most of us have heard or know about the Tuskegee experiments, where they injected black men with syphilis germs, didn't tell them that's what they were doing. So it was an experiment that lasted all the way to roughly 1972 or so.
Yep.
They kept on going. And then, oh my God. And the number of black women who were sterilized without their knowledge, black women like Miss Lax, Henrietta Lax, whose cervical cells were stolen. And by the way, every white person and black person that had a polio shot is walking around with the DNA of Henrietta Lacks in their body.
Correct.
So whether you admit you have black people in your ethnicity or not, it's there whether you like it or not, because the polio vaccine was made from a black woman's cervical blood cells. So so that telling people about that is something that we still are not being told in the educational system. Correct. We're not being told about more modern things in the educational system. And one day someone had the nerve to tell me, why are those people saying Black Lives Matter when all lives matter? Well, I have a good answer for that. Because Black lives never mattered. That's why. They never mattered. White lives always mattered. So if all lives matter, then there shouldn't be anything wrong with someone saying Black Lives Matter, because they never mattered. And that's witnessed today by the number of black people that are indiscriminately killed in police stops, George Floyd, all of that stuff that happens even now. And then we still have things going on in hospitals that are horrible. In some states we're sued as a result of giving black women hysterectomies without their knowledge. Who knows what's going on with that now? So I wouldn't be surprised that that's still being done somewhere.
So let me give you an example of that. When you say, one of the things that I got into a really heated discussion with someone last week, when they say all lives matter, right? When all lives don't matter, right? Because one, historically, black lives haven't mattered. But to take you, if they matter, that all lives matter. When we see police abuse white citizens, beat the crap out of them, right? Like in 2020 in Colorado, there was an elderly lady who was about 74, 75 who had dementia. And this cop took this lady, slammed her to the ground, broke her arm, right? Where were the All Lives Matter groups then? They weren't anywhere. And so the annoying part of the All Lives Matter counter argument, right? If they do matter, right, then why aren't you standing up for, right, white people who are also assaulted by the police, right? You don't see these people stand up for that, right? Actually, and when you see in Arkansas, there was a young man, and I identify with this because he kind of comes from that country background that I come from, right? He's a white guy, was killed in Arkansas. You know who came to the rescue? And this guy, I can guarantee he was a conservative, right? BLM came to the rescue on that, right? So when you dig down on specific issues, right, you see if all lives matter. Now, I want to transition over here. When we talk about Henrietta Lacks, there's a global change organ, a global foyer or something going on today, which is why Tiffany's not here, right? About Henrietta Lacks. So not only with the polio, but there's dozens upon dozens upon dozens of treatments that came from that one person. And so one of the things that we've done right here at the Kidney Foundation is that we believe that more of us, people who look like us, the American descendants of the formerly enslaved, we think that more brown people of different shades and hues and origins need to participate in clinical trials. But our concern has always been who controls their data. Can they pull the data in and out as they see fit and participate? Right. And so what we've done is we've done probably 6-7 months of research, and we finally have a partner that we believe that that's going to work with, that where you can come in, sign up, right, and participate, and you get to choose who you want to participate in with the trial. You get to choose who gets your information and who doesn't. Right. That's the part that we're trying to get out there and do. Right. Because and that ties into the part where I believe that we have to be involved in the political process around specific issues. Right. We got to hone in and drill down in the specific issues. Oftentimes we have to deal with people that, man, I think this person is not an honest actor. But that's the part there where we overcome these habits and that have set in. Right. Which I think systemic racism is a habit. It's a historical habit of organizations and institutions. And then people try to gaslight you when you bring a spotlight on it. Right. And so, Reggie, I don't want to leave you out there. You look like you have something you want to say.
Yeah, it's just like, I mean, it's so blatant, man. You look in the medical field for as insurance, man. I mean, you know, it's disproportionately black people doesn't have the access to the medical insurance that white people have, you know. So a lot of people that I know, you know, they can't go to the hospital. They say, man, I don't have insurance for that, man. You know, so they just try to deal with it the best way they can, you know. So it's unbelievable, you know, that everybody in this country can't get, you know, proper health care, you know. Yeah. The doctors, you know, I was looking at a documentary where doctors in France, they say that you know, they help everybody. You say the doctors say we believe and we don't have to have 3 houses and 5 cars. You know, 1 house and the car is just fine for us. You know, so in America they say you guys, your doctors want to have, you know, 16 houses and 55 cars. So
I love it.
They make it hard, you know, to treat people. You know, but I mean, it's been going on for years, man, and it's still going on. It's just under the table type thing, you know.
And that is a good place to end this segment. And you've been listening to On the Record with Kevin and Tiffany on 9:30 a.m. The Answer, home of conservative talk radio.